Canon C70 and anamorphic lenses don't exactly get along, but they can kind of work together if you know what you're doing, how to set them up, and if you're willing to make some compromises. As you may have noticed, the intro of this video was shot on anamorphic along with this talking head. I'm shooting on the Sirui 50mm anamorphic, the T29, the full frame version. It is the RF mount, so I'm in Super 35 mode on the Canon C70 using a full frame lens. It works pretty well. I'm not really gonna be focusing on the Sirui lens in particular as much as I'm gonna be focusing on anamorphic on the C70 in general. It just happens to be the only lens that I have that is anamorphic. It is a 1.6 times anamorphic lens. And if you don't know, the 1.6 is basically the squeeze factor of the lens, how much it is squeezing the image that's coming off of your sensor. So in other words, the higher that number is, the more anamorphic characteristics your lenses will have, versus the lower the number, the less they will have. And generally the standard for Hollywood is like a 2 times anamorphic. That is kind of the standard, and those are all cameras that can shoot open gate, that can get the full height of the sensor. And when you're able to shoot open gate, what happens is you don't end up having to sacrifice as much of your image off the sides, and it allows the image to be less narrow and stretched as opposed to filling more of the screen. So you don't have to sacrifice as much of your frame in editing if you want to actually get a normal CinemaScope deliverable out of that project. You have to sacrifice less of your image that way, versus on this Canon C70 that is a 16:9 sensor that does not allow you to shoot open gate. On a 1.6 squeeze factor anamorphic lens, you're gonna end up losing around 30% of your frame if you want it to be a normal CinemaScope deliverable. That's kind of just the general sacrifice you're gonna have to make. So that means that on the sides of your image, there's gonna be a lot of stuff cut off. So you have to think about that when you're shooting. Quote unquote problems with shooting anamorphic on the C70 pretty much are the same across most Canon cameras. Not many Canon cameras can shoot open gate footage. It's just not something that has been introduced into the prosumer or even the cinema line that often. And this is not just Canon either. There's Sony cameras that still don't shoot open gate. There's a lot of brands that have yet to really fully embrace the open gate footage, because for a long time anamorphic lenses were really not accessible to the general public. They were so expensive. Sure, you could go out and buy them, but they would cost you thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get one. So it was really not accessible. So camera brands really didn't focus on it. But now that Sirui and other brands have come out with affordable anamorphic lenses that are actually pretty good, the camera brands need to catch up. Now, there are some brands that have fully embraced the anamorphic life, talking about brands like Panasonic that have come out with the Lumix series cameras, the S5, the S5 Mark II, the S5 Mark II X, all those cameras you can shoot open gate on. And this is a big deal when you're shooting a full project in anamorphic. Even for me, shooting this intro in the beginning and other projects, I've shot full projects with this anamorphic lens on my R6 Mark II, on my Canon C70. I've shot in a bunch of different situations, and it's really kind of frustrating at times when knowing that you're gonna have to lose so much of your image if you want to make a really watchable deliverable. Otherwise, you're going to have a uber thin frame that's really not going to look the best on most phones, iPads, computers. It's going to look stupid. So it's very important to think about that before you go shoot, so you know, and have frame guides on your screen so that you know, okay, this part of my image is probably going to be gone, so I need to frame appropriately. So that's something you need to think about when shooting with the C70, is having frame guides on an external monitor so you can really be able to see what is actually going to be in your frame in the edit. Another thing about anamorphic lenses that you may not be aware of is that when you're trying to monitor the footage as you're shooting, it's going to look all smushed this way. So what you have to do is you have to have a camera or a monitor, an external monitor, that's able to de-squeeze the footage in real time so that you're able to kind of view and be able to actually shoot something, full focus, all those things. And the Canon C70 does have anamorphic de-squeeze built into the camera, but it only has 2 options. 2 times and 1.3. And so for me, when I was at 1.6, there really was not a de-squeeze option for me with this lens. Every time I shoot with this lens, I have to use my Ninja V or something similar so that I'm able to actually get a de-squeeze for this 1.6 lens. And even the Ninja V itself only does 1.5, but it's close enough that it looks normal and you're able to kind of pull focus and do those things. Now, me personally, even before I knew what filmmaking really was and I even knew what anamorphic lenses were, I always loved the anamorphic look. Looking back now that I do understand, I realized I was always drawn to anamorphic looks. I loved that non-spherical bokeh, the tall, skinny bokeh, the flares, all the things. It just added a unique characteristic to the footage. And so I've always sought that as a filmmaker myself. And granted, you don't get to use them a lot on commercial projects in my work itself, but I do get to use it on fun things. And it's always fun to break this lens out of the bag. and go film some anamorphic stuff. And that's what I did this weekend because it's been a while. I haven't used it in a while, and I wanted to kind of revisit what it's like actually shooting anamorphic on the C70 in 2024. And knowing the fact that Canon is about to drop some new cinema cameras this week. I'm recording this on June 3rd. So June 5th, they have this big cinema camera announcement. I'm really hopeful that they take some steps forward in the anamorphic world, along with some other things that Canon really needs to improve to be able to keep up with the industry. This is one of those areas where I really hope they address is anamorphic shooting. I really hope they give us an open gate option on these new cameras or whatever they end up unveiling. And if you're watching this after this, you already know, we've already known. But as of June 3rd, I have no idea what they're going to release. So I'm excited about that. Even with all this new stuff potentially coming out, I still think that the Canon C70 is very usable shooting anamorphic. It's not perfect by any means. There's some things that you could do differently in terms of buying a lens or renting a lens of your choice. Like I would probably go with more of a 1.3 times squeeze factor on this camera as opposed to a 1.6 or a 2. And really just for the fact that it would simply allow you to lose less of your image in the edit. And if you go with a lens that's a super 35 coverage lens as opposed to a full frame lens like I have here, that would probably also be a better option for the C70. Now you may be wondering why I didn't get an EF mount anamorphic lens and use with the speed booster so I have full frame. Well, you really can't. EF mount anamorphic lenses have the lens protrude too much out of the back of the mount, and so what it would end up doing, it would end up hitting the glass of the speed booster. So you really can't use EF anamorphic lenses with the speed booster on the C70, unfortunately. Now you could take the normal EF to RF adapter and use an anamorphic lens, but you will not get the speed booster effects of the full frame because of the extra glass that's in the speed booster itself. But that's it. That's all I got for you today. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know what you feel about anamorphic shooting in the comments. Do you use your C70 with anamorphic lenses, or do you have an open gate camera? I would love to talk in the comments below. Let me know what you guys think. As always, I appreciate you so much for watching. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button if you like what you saw. We talk a lot of filmmaking on this channel, so I have a lot of exciting videos coming on the channel over the next couple months, including a full behind the scenes of a 5-camera multi-shoot. I'm really excited about that. It's going to be a massive project, big undertaking for me, but I'm excited to see the results. So can't wait to bring you guys along with that, along with a bunch of other videos as well. So as always, I appreciate you. I'll catch you in the next one.